Hello, welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Ari Hirschberg, Community Practice Lead at the Exchange Lab. This month, I am talking with Zorin Samji, Senior Portfolio Manager, and Mikaela Bertucci, Senior Program Developer for the fourth segment on the learner's journey entitled Diving In. Mikaela and Zorin and their teams have been fantastic additions to the lab. What sticks out to me with Mikaela is her curiosity and determination. I met Mikaela many months prior to her team starting at the lab. She was regular at the lab, asking questions, reading books, and sharing knowledge. It felt like she already had a team who was contributing. I remember meeting Zorin at our team's alignment. I was impressed with her candor, ability to be vulnerable in this new way of working and asking questions, lots of questions. Working in Agile at the lab is not easy. That said, the ability to continue to be curious, to look at a problem in many ways, knowing that you don't know the answer, but to keep being curious and move forward is key and a great skill. Thank you both for contributing to the lab culture, creating great teams and wonderful products. Welcome, Zorin and Mikaela. Thanks for being on the podcast. Let's start. What led you to work in a new way? Let's start with Zorin.
An opportunity was presented to our team about the problem space that we were in and really being able to understand who we were building and who we were trying to solve the problem for. And in order to really be able to focus on that end user or that client that we're focusing on, we really needed to work in a new way where we could be responsive in a matter of a couple of weeks. And so we had an outsider actually approach us with what a potential problem was. So it was framed in the manner of, here's a hypothesis. Why don't you try working in the lab and see what flushes out of that? So it was an opportunity for us to say, is this really a problem or is it not a problem? And we needed a new way to be able to do that in a shorter time frame. And so, and we also really needed to understand our users. That was the main driver for working in an agile way, is to be able to really get shoulder to shoulder with who we were delivering the value for.
And Mikaela?
Well, I guess I could kind of start a little bit in the beginning of my journey. So I was working in a program area and noticed that people were working off an Excel spreadsheet, and they had systems that weren't connected together. And so, to me, having a technology background, seemed to create a lot more work and a lot more stress. And so, I, sitting back and observing what was occurring, and having been in technology, thought like there's an easier way to do this. And if we could create a system that combined all of these different systems that are working together to try and combine the information, it would probably take less time. It'd probably be way less stressful, and they'd be able to respond to questions that they were getting from the ministers and from their assistant deputy minister. And I, having been in waterfall type development in the early 2000s, and learning about agile, thought that it was definitely a better way of working. And so I started to learn about agile and to understand how it could be applied. And it just seemed to make logical sense to me to develop software in increments.
Fair. Yeah, it really does make a difference to have things shown on a regular basis. How'd you go about working with the unknowns?
So initially, we had an idea and a vision of what we needed to do. We just didn't know how to get there, and so and especially for myself, as a product owner, I never played the role of product owner before. I had been like a programmer and a project manager a long time ago, but product owner was totally new. And so I knew that I didn't know what I didn't know. So I reached out and started having conversations with other people through the Exchange Lab and through contacts that I had made by attending courses at the Exchange Lab and just by hanging out at the lab. So I initially reached out to Jesus Hernandez Tapia, and he and I discussed like what I could potentially do. And what we did is we created what's called an inception workshop. And so that was the beginning of building a backlog for us to start working on. And then from working and with Jesus, I realized there's just so much, like you can only learn so much from a book and from attending courses. So I asked him if he would coach me. So Jesus coached me once a week for at least 6 months. And then I also had a mentor. And a lot of it for me was just really reaching out and asking questions. And Zorin was ahead of me probably by about a month, I think, Zorin.
Yeah, I think it was about
Yeah.
4 weeks. Yeah.
So Zorin was kind of going through the process a month ahead of me, and so I reached out to Zorin as well too for like simple for not shouldn't say simple stuff, but for even just like the sprint with us process, like how are you doing this and how did you go about this? And I feel really fortunate in that there is a community of people who that it was possible for me to reach out to ask questions and to learn from, and those people who are willing to share their mistakes. And Zorin was definitely one of those people for me because she, having gone through the sprint with us process, shared her experience and her the stuff she thought was missing from the sprint with us, and so I got to learn from her experience and then go through the sprint with us process behind her. So it definitely for me reaching out to people and asking questions. I'm really grateful for people being willing to support me in that way. I wouldn't have been able to do this without them.
And before Zoran, you share your thoughts. I like what you said about books. I know there's something about reading a book and feeling like I got this, but it's not even, it's just a start with this work. You really have to reach out to your community and get mentored because it's an unknown process. No book can really help you through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, even with the like starting the team, like having a team at the lab. As a product owner, really, I didn't know what I was doing. And so being, my team that came in, they had an idea of what they're doing, but everyone's interpretation of Scrum and Agile is a little bit different too. So also having the Exchange Lab there to back me up and to help me kind of stick with the basics of what Scrum methodology is, and then to stand in stand in that and almost like stand in the strength of the lab and have them behind me for me to be able to go into my team and say, no, actually, like we need to have a daily stand up every day. We need to be in the same room with each other for communication purposes and stuff, and to have the Exchange Lab team there behind me and backing me up for that gave me a lot more confidence where I didn't have the experience to have that confidence.
Yeah. And Zoran?
An opportunity was presented to our team about the problem space that we were in and really being able to understand who we were building and who we were trying to solve the problem for. And in order to really be able to focus on that end user or that client that we're focusing on, we really needed to work in a new way where we could be responsive in a matter of a couple of weeks. And so we had an outsider actually approach us with what a potential problem was. So it was framed in the manner of, here's a hypothesis. Why don't you try working in the lab and see what flushes out of that? So it was an opportunity for us to say, is this really a problem or is it not a problem? And we needed a new way to be able to do that in a shorter time frame. And so, and we also really needed to understand our users. That was the main driver for working in an agile way, is to be able to really get shoulder to shoulder with who we were delivering the value for.
And Zoran, what are your thoughts about how did you go about working with the unknowns?
Yeah, so in anything that I seem to tackle when I'm not quite sure about things, I end up trying to research as much as I can. And so there was some great learnings that we had through the community at the Exchange Lab, but also I really needed to get into the head of the users that we were building something for. And so we were able to work with what we called as early adopters. So they were a segment of the population representing the user base that we were building for. And was able to have some informal conversations with them before I started with the team to be able to say, what are some of the problems that you faced? What are some of the types of personas or personalities that you have at your organization? And that really helped me sink my teeth into who the end users are and who we're actually building a product for rather than a project. And so going about with the unknowns a little bit more on that, it was a matter of just asking a lot of questions, researching, collating information, trying to figure out, okay, has someone else done this before? Have they not? And also really, really reaching down in to say, I really don't know what I'm doing here. So I may not be successful in this, and I'm okay with that because I'm going to give it my full gusto of a try to see what I could help in terms of resolving a problem. So really, being uncomfortable with, let me rephrase that. Being comfortable with potentially failing, and also being able to adapt and to be able to ask questions, to be able to understand and get in the right headspace of paving my path forward.
And just to question on research, when you say research, how would you divide it to connecting with people percentage-wise to reading up on Agile and the way of working?
Yeah, definitely through conversations. There's so much that I was able to ream out of conversations with people and building those connections. Going back to Mikaela's point about the community being so important, being able to have a diverse group of experts available to also bounce ideas off of and to engage with. There was always a tidbit. My notebook got really full with all the information that I would collect in those conversations because they were so meaningful. So yeah, definitely the majority of those conversations.
Thanks for elaborating. Tell us about your journey about creating your own journey or working at the lab. Zorin?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so it was a very colorful journey is the way I'd like to describe it. So being able to really understand the user base that we were trying to solve our problem or our hypothesis for, that was that persona research or diving into the different personas was really helpful in building the foundation. And then having a team that took on the residency at the lab. There's this quote when I was researching for my user base, I came across that there's genius in diversity. And I really do believe that when you have all these different perspectives and you're able to take the strengths out of that, you're really able to be effective and efficient and build something that works for all. And when I think about the team that I had when we were taking residency in the lab, that's exactly what it was. We all had some different background in our subject matter expertise, but we were able to come together and work in this agile way where we had 2-week sprints, meeting every day. I was focused on building the backlog and the stories, and then everybody came to the table every day when we were talking about our stories or the work that we were doing to say, have you considered this? Have you considered this? Here's a question that I have. And I really do think it brought us to this successful point that we did where we had something delivered within our second sprint to be able to say, this is the culmination of everything that we've built. So in terms of how we went about our journey, there was that, but there's also this other element of, you don't always know everything and you need to reach out, and having that residency at the lab really helped in building those relationships where if a developer needed to ask some more questions related to the OpenShift environment, it was like, oh, okay, you can talk to this person. Either you can rocket chat message them, or you can go around to the corner to this room to talk to them. Or if you wanted to do a random poll to see, okay, what do people think about the language of this vision statement versus this vision statement? Let's just get some feedback from people who aren't involved in our work. We were able to do that by reaching out and tapping into the community. And Mikaela had mentioned it also, that the lab community was essential in terms of being able to be successful as a product owner, because without that, there was no footing or support to be able to say, hey, I'm really not sure about this. What should I be doing there? Or is this phase of where I'm at? Am I good? Like, is this normal what I'm going through? Where there's that healthy conflict between myself, the product owner, and the team, where they're challenging me to think in a different way. And we've passed our honeymoon period where everything is happy, let's make the product owner. And having that community to tap into, to say, yeah, other product owners have gone through this. Yep, I've been there. Hang in there. You're going to get through something, and being able to ultimately deliver on something was helpful for that. But I do think that those conversations, those relationships, that dynamic community at the lab, where again, genius and diversity, you have so many different levels of expertise, so many different areas of public servants who provide services to citizens, that you can tap into to make your product or the issue of the day, or the problem of the day that you're tackling, that you can really hone in on it and have all these different perspectives on, is foundational.
I like that you and your team work closely with the community so you didn't get stuck in a bubble, which is such an easy place to get stagnant and unconfident and stop moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Mikaela, what's your thoughts on, tell us about your journey, about creating your own journey at working at the lab?
Oh my gosh, there's so much to that journey. Where to begin? Well, I just started hanging out there. I'd go there for lunches, and I'd go just to meet people, because I knew it was I had a strong belief that it was the way to develop software. It just, to me, having observed other projects or products that were being developed out of the lab, and seeing the velocity that they were being developed, and that they were solving problems like end user problems, to me, just it was inspiring for me. So that's where my journey started, really, was like I said before, I had an idea. I started making the connections, building a case to go to the lab, and then enrolling others in that belief that the lab was the place to develop the software. I mean, it wasn't easy, and it's a new mindset, so it takes people a little bit to understand why you would want to hire a team and work full time on one project, because it seems to be unusual in the government that you just work on one project. Um, and the exchange lab was definitely supported me in enrolling others in that belief, because they had been through it before, so that was very supportive. And then, the whole process of hiring a team and getting a team going, and started at the lab, not knowing what I was doing. I mean, even just using Jira, in and of itself is like, that's a full-time job. And,
Yes, it
and
is.
Jira, yeah, like
Yeah.
Jira is, for those that don't know, you could look it up, JIRA. It's the software that we use to manage our backlog and manage our sprints. Um, even just learning Jira, like, it takes like tenacity, and you've got to be able to, you don't, it's a mindset of not giving up. And I guess I was born with the mindset of not giving up. If you really believe in something, and you really believe that this is the way to develop software, but even above that, like, you want to solve a problem, and you want to make lives easier for people that I was working with. That's what I really truly believed in. And I really believe that we're in a modern digital age where we have the technology, we have the ability to create efficiencies and to lean out, processes and procedures, where something that takes like a week can take 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 30 seconds to respond with the right piece of software. when you free up people's time from doing sort of a lot of mundane tasks or trying to piece things together from a whole bunch of different places, then what's left for them? When you automate stuff that is can be done by a computer, there's this time and this space for people to contribute in other ways. And to me, that's more rewarding and more fulfilling, rather than sitting behind a computer doing the same kind of tasks over and over and over again. If that becomes part of a system, then there's more space for creativity. There's more space for contribution. There's more space for leadership. So I think to come to the lab and to want to work in this way, it's a belief that things can be better and that our systems can be more efficient, and we can create more efficient systems internally, just for government employees, but also opening up data and access and making things easier for external for the citizens, like what Zorin's project is doing. So
Yeah.
I think it's that belief, and then once you have that belief and you really truly believe that, and I believe that Zorin believes that too, is that then you have the tenacity and the courage and the strength and the vulnerability and the willingness to say, I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know how I'm going to get a project to the lab, or I don't know how, once I'm in the lab, how this works, but I'm going to figure it out because I believe this is the way to do this.
Yeah, like I'm nodding away here, Mikaela, because it's like that it is hard work, but that passion is what for me personally just fuels to say we can make it easier. It like we can work together to come to the finish line for this. So I'm nodding in complete agreement with you 100%.
I was gonna say, Ari, you know what? You don't have to be the smartest person in the room to do this either. You got to have passion, and when people believe in you and what you're doing because you believe in something greater than you, then people will come on board and support you.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's also this other element too that like this I know I've experienced, Mikaela, maybe you did too, but being, that initial, okay, what am I going to do in my first 2 sprints? Like what if I don't have anything delivered? What if I fail? The beauty of Agile is that you're able to pivot and you're able to say, okay, well, if I didn't get it this sprint, I could try to think about it in the next couple sprints. Like I often caught myself thinking, I'm actually working in 3D. I'm thinking about the future. I'm working in my current sprint, and I'm also bringing people along who are behind me who haven't come up to the place that I'm at. So we're as a product owner, we're navigating in this 3D space, and yeah, it's hard at first, but then you kind of get your, you get some pace to it.
Yeah, and the whole pivot piece, like when I first started, I was trying to solve the wrong problem. I mean, I had the overarching vision, but I was trying to solve a data problem originally, and I was having my developers try to solve this data problem, and I quickly realized, no, like we're not doing that. We need to refocus on what the actual vision of the project is. So it's the ability to make changes and not have to submit change requests and all this documentation around, hey, that takes, I don't know how long it takes, but I've heard it takes forever to submit all this documentation. But it's the ability to pivot, like, okay, that's actually not the direction that we should be going in. We should be going in this direction where we're actually creating a minimal viable product and not trying to solve a data issue. Like, so it's that freedom as a product owner to adapt really quickly to what the business area needs and what makes the most sense to reach the end goal, which in our case, when we first started, was our minimal viable product.
Yeah, and it sounds like it was an empowering thing to be able to change on with such speed. 'Cause it sucks to be stuck in a place where it's not working and you can't move it in a direction, but at any speed, but you could. And that sounds like it was empowering.
Yeah, I mean, we pivot all the time on our team. Not all the time, but like if it's like constantly reminding the team and the business area, like we got to focus on what the vision is. Are we solving the vision by going down this path? Okay, no, we're not. So let's back out of that path and go down, go back down the main road. But it is very empowering. I can't imagine having to write change requests. I just can't imagine.
So you two started around the same time. Sounds like you have a close connection. What was it like?
It was really good. Like I remember, I can't remember who reached out to who first, but it was really nice to have someone like so close to the journey with me. Like I remember the first face-to-face meeting we had, Mikaela. I was like, I think this is what I'm doing. I'm not entirely sure, and there was just some, that camaraderie that we had to say, okay, yeah, like this is what I'm doing. Like it was just nice. And I think you had even said it to me. You're like, yeah, it's like I'm kind of like your little sister. Like I'm 4 weeks behind you, and I'm gonna follow what happens as you're going through things. And I feel like it's helped, because it's like I can come to you when I'm really faced as a product owner with something challenging to say, have you experienced this? And just like any natural family relationship, sometimes your sibling does experience something that you haven't. So yeah, for me, it's been really, really helpful to have someone so close to my journey at the same time.
Yeah, especially in the beginning, and especially when you're forming a team. When you're going through the forming, the storming, norming, the performing. I can't remember what all the stages are.
Yeah,
What is it?
performing.
Forming?
Forming, norming, storming, and performing.
No. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, but yeah, especially when you're in the beginning stages and you don't really know what to expect with regards to working with the team and the challenges that come along with that, especially when you've got a team of developers who have more experience than you do. Or well, for me, when I did, I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So it was good to be able to reach out and have those conversations. Even the sprint with us process was that was challenging, and to be able to ask Zorin questions, and then I think we even came back together after I finished mine as well, and we discussed and what was challenging and where we could provide feedback. And even just to have someone that you could walk down the hall and have the conversation, like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with today. I'm having challenges with this. Like, have you ever? Yeah, it was everything you said, Zorin. It was very grateful.
Yeah, and like even having the community out there, like being able to pop a message into Rocket Chat or Teams or send an email, that was super helpful. One thing that I did appreciate about having us at this relatively same point in our journey was that some of these other product owners had been there for over a year, so they were a little bit more mature at their place, whereas it was helpful, and no doubt everyone has always been helpful whenever I've reached out for a question. But there is just something about being able to kind of go in at something with a peer.
And it should be noted that Zorin and I did things differently too. So like, there's no one right way to do this to be a product owner at the lab.
Yeah, good point.
It's really your own journey and finding what works for you. So yeah, like we did things differently. Like I remember I did an inception workshop, and I don't know, Zorin, if you did an inception workshop or not.
We did an alignment day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had some variations of stuff, but yeah, I agree. Like every product owner has their own journey, and there's some parallels you can kind of weave in and out.
But it does help, talking to other teams, because like I remember when I first started, I didn't know where I was like, okay, now what? Like, where do I start? Like, I had an idea because I kind of wireframed the system from before, but like, where do I start? And so I remember talking to Heather and Zorin, and I think Nino too. Like, I just reached out and talked to everybody I possibly could, and who would have a conversation with me about, like, where did you start? Did you do an inception workshop? What is that? What does that look like? some people are like, no, I didn't know, we didn't do that. And other teams were like, oh yeah, we did it. It was really helpful. Like there's just, yeah, you just find your own way through having conversations.
What you both believe is key, but let's say it again, because I just think it's key. What words come to mind when you think about your journey and getting things done at the lab?
Perseverance.
Yeah, flexibility, adaptability, willingness to
Um,
fail.
yeah,
Sorry, these are more words, and that was willingness to fail is more than one word.
that's a big one though.
Yeah.
It's almost
Yeah.
like
So can you go into
expect to
like,
fail.
yeah, exactly. I wanted to expand on that.
Yeah, it's almost like have an expectation that you're going to be that you will fail, and then that there's gifts in failing.
Yeah, 100%.
Uh, there's always a gift in making a mistake and looking back at those mistakes um, and then learning moving forward.
There's so much learning that happens in every sprint. Like it's mind blowing actually. So going with that mindset that, yeah, you're going to fail, but you're going to learn a tremendous amount. I think is continuous learning is kind of hand in hand with being willing to fail.
And that's only 2 weeks time. It's only in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's not a long time to wait. You're finding out in 2 weeks.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
the sprints for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you're able to actually put that to your users and to say, okay, this is what we've delivered. And like, it's so gratifying to be able to say, remember 3 weeks ago we talked about this? Oh, and now within 2 weeks, we are able to show you this. Like being able to have that conversation at one point in time and within 2 weeks be able to demonstrate, or whatever your sprint review cycle is, being able to follow up and follow through with it is so gratifying to say, yeah, we heard you. This is what we've done. Comments, feedback, give it to me because we're going to take this and we're going to retrospectively look at it and we're going to continuously learn and improve upon the product that we're building. So it's kind of like a misnomer sometimes to think about that you're going to fail because you're not really failing. You're always learning and you're always applying that learning in your next sprint. And that's what you're just continuously doing sprint after sprint until you've got your MVP. And then after your minimal viable product, you build your backlog of all these great things to do for another improvement cycle.
And stakeholders appreciate that too. Like when what I've noticed in working with stakeholders is that like recognizing that, oh, okay, so this didn't work, and then we're gonna change it for the next sprint. Like it's that not instant gratification, because of course it's 2 weeks, but it's that, oh, they heard what I was saying and they're actually implementing it, making those changes, which is a new way of developing software. With waterfall, it would have taken a long time for anything to change. Just the fact that you can even just change like the most minor thing, like it's silly, but like the color of a button, or if there's a spelling mistake, or it's the wrong word, or you need a better descriptor for this field. Just minor changes creates more collaboration with your stakeholders and more engagement, more buy-in, and they become excited about working with you.
Yeah. There's so many words. There's so many words. I'm just kind of taking off of what you just said, Mikaela. It's like collaboration, it's responsiveness, it's learning, it's flexibility. It's being part of this larger community. It's you know accepting diversity. There's just so much in this way of working, and really, I think that the final thing I would lean on would be you're delivering the value to the users who need it. Like that's why we're all doing what we're doing. That's why we're all public servants. We're here to deliver value to those who need it.
Mm-hmm.
Any other final thoughts for you, Mikaela?
It's been a challenging journey. It hasn't been easy, and it's extremely rewarding. I really enjoy what I do. Um, it's fun every 2 weeks to see new features come out into production. It's I love working with my team. When they put something in my column on Jira for me to review, and it's a new feature, and it's like, way to go! Like, you did that in 3 days. It's like you see results happening. I see results happening every day that I look in my Jira backlog and I look at my product. Um, it's just fun. It's a really fun way of working, and people are engaged and they enjoy working. And in fact, I don't like my contract team to work on the weekend. I tell them don't work on the weekend, but they tell me, Mikaela, we love this. We love it. Like, we're having fun and we're enjoying doing this. So we're working on the weekend. I'm like, no, please don't. But I can't force them not to. So
Yeah, Mikaela, I wonder
yeah.
if you actually catch yourself also doing that on the weekend. You know, as a product
I
owner.
really, yeah, I don't. And the reason why I don't do that is because, and I shut it down at like 5 o'clock. There's times where I'll work a little bit later, but for me, like, I know it's cliche to say work-life balance is important, but the thing is our team, we work at a really high velocity. We turn stuff out like all the time. And as a product owner, there's a lot to manage. So there's the backlog and keeping on, making sure the stories are ready for the developers to estimate and to so that we can put them in the next sprints. And then there's also all of the stakeholder kind of management, like communicating with stakeholders and making sure everything's open and transparent, and that I'm answering their questions and having the conversations with them. Plus, on top of that, there's all the curiosity around agile projects and how did you do this, and like that sort of reaching out and supporting other people who are asking me about, oh, I have this idea. So there's that, and then there's the figuring out how to have this project transition back to our IMB and supporting that team with transition. That there's just so much going on every day that, and I put so much effort in between 8 and 4:30, 5 o'clock, that I'm spent and I need my weekends to recover. So I don't work on the weekends. I'll see stuff like on Rocket Chat like come up from my team, but I purposely just don't respond. I need the weekend. I don't think I could function during the week if I didn't have the weekends off.
Good for you, Mikaela. I think it's key too, because then you get the energy to want to and have the mindset to properly really go at it the next week.
Yeah.
Thank you both for taking time to share your thoughts. Really appreciated hearing what you had to say. This was fascinating. The next episode, segment 5 of the learner's journey, is getting to performing with Health Gateway product owner Nino Sampson. Email me at ra.hirschberg@gov.bc.ca. I would love to hear your feedback, comments, and suggestions. Thanks for listening.